In the Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton to get some reaction from this. The New York Post cover had it as a dark divide. And before we get into the substance, could I just ask you what the visuals matter? If you remember, Michael Deaver, of course, who worked for Ronald Reagan, really mastered that. I think presidential advance is one of the coolest jobs in the world. I am not sure what they were going for, but maybe the dark Brandon look was what they really wanted.
Dana, I'm not sure what they were going for either, with the strange and wildly inappropriate setting, the unusual, weird red lighting, most worrisome having Marine standing behind him in which he's engaging in political attacks on 74 million Americans who voted for Republicans in the last election. But then again, what would you expect Joe Biden to talk about? He can't run on his own record. Congressmen and senators can't defend the Democratic record. Think about what he didn't say last night. He didn't say anything about his student loan bailout from last week. And if you want to talk about dangers to democracy, that's a perfect example of it. Joe Biden, without any legal authority, is giving away hundreds of billions of dollars to his political supporters in places like colleges and universities across America, while people who didn't go to school, who worked hard, who went to school and worked hard to pay off their loans, or whose parents had saved, they're going to bear the burden of all that debt that Joe Biden has unlawfully given to political supporters across the country. That's a real threat to democracy, just like the 87,000 IRS agents that Democrats just voted to hire last month to harass hardworking families and small businesses. Those are the real threats to democracy, not what Joe Biden was lying about last night.
Senator, you say that he didn't say anything about the student loan stuff. I want to just put this on the screen because it's just fascinating. Our crew put this together. It's brilliant. These are the words that Biden failed to mention last night. And remember that he in the White House kept saying this is a policy speech. It's not a political speech. Inflation, zero. Fentanyl, zero. Border, zero. Cartels, zero. Debt, zero. Prices, zero. Gas, zero. Abortion, zero. Overdoses, zero. Income, zero. And mortgage, zero. This apparently was not a great policy speech.
Not a lot of policy in that speech, Trace. And again, to go back to the threats to democracy, many of the things you just cited that he didn't address, like the fentanyl crisis or 100,000 Americans dying every year from overdoses, more than 20 times we lost in the entire Iraq war, the open border, that gets back to Joe Biden abdicating his responsibility to enforce the law, to uphold immigration laws as written by Congress, and to protect our borders from a slow-motion invasion, not only of migrants looking for jobs, but vicious, violent cartel members and gang members who are flooding our streets with drugs. This again gets back to the real threats to our democracy, which is Joe Biden and the far left of the Democratic Party, who will disregard the law and overturn long-standing customs and standards of democratic practice in America to pursue their radical ideology. What we need to do is to protect the American people from the deranged partisan ideologue you saw on stage last night by making sure that we elect a Republican majority to the Congress this fall. Once we do that, I'm going to protect the American people from that deranged ideologue.
Can I just ask you one last question, though? There are some on Twitter from the left saying that if you're criticizing this speech, and especially the look of it with the Marines behind, but you didn't criticize President Trump for what they're saying is the same thing, are you being hypocritical? Just give you a chance to answer that.
Again, like Joe Biden, I think that's what psychologists would call projecting. The Democrats continue to attack Republicans for supposedly undermining our democracy. But the Democrats are the one who stood idly by while left-wing street militias burned our cities in the summer of 2020 with almost no legal consequences. Joe Biden's Department of Justice is the one sicking the feds on parents at school boards, or refusing to enforce the law outside of Supreme Court justices' homes when you have left-wing agitators clearly violating federal law. The Democrats are the one that just voted to hire 87,000 new IRS agents. They're the ones that are threatening democratic standards and norms in our country. They're projecting this onto Republicans because they don't have any accomplishments on which they can campaign this fall.
Yeah. Senator, thank you.
Senator Tom Cotton, thank you. Have a good Labor Day weekend. We appreciate you being here today.